Hi, my name is Dr. Dave Webster. It's been a long time since my last video blog where I pointed out that I really needed to take a break and reevaluate where things were at on my efforts with pets, spend some time with my family, and then hopefully regroup in September. Now, it was supposed to be our holiday time, but in fact, typical of me, I was working mostly 10 to 14-hour days with only one 6-day period where I wasn't actually in Sudbury and available to work at the hospital. However, I was doing the things that I loved the most. I was reconnecting with my family, I was doing some sailing and some mountain biking, and the work I love. I was meeting with patients and colleagues, and best of all, finally having an opportunity to work on one of the most exquisite PET CT units that money can buy. But for the first time in at least 3 years, I wasn't constantly thinking about these issues and spending endless hours day and night and on weekends creating my videos and posts. I really became aware of just how incredibly stressful, emotionally as well as intellectually, my amateur efforts to use social media have been, and in particular how demoralizing my failure to make the slightest difference has made, and the impact that's had on me, and of course the inevitable impact on my family. Over the past almost 20 years, I have been fighting the moral and ethical bankruptcy in Ontario's political and bureaucratic system with its legions of enablers. And I've taken the occasional hiatuses. However, this time I really, and I mean really, struggled with trying to force myself to once again sit down in front of that blank computer screen in the vain hope of somehow for once creating something that would motivate people in Ontario to stand up for Ontario's patients against impossible odds, and of course the best efforts of the government's propagandists masquerading as professional journalists and news anchors. We need to force our politicians to stop using some of Ontario's sickest and most distressed patients as quite literally, as you will see, cash machines to do what politicians have always done. And what is it that they do once they're elected? They enrich and empower those who manipulate and pull their strings from the back rooms and, of course, keep them in power. But also during this time of reflection, colleagues came to me as they have since the beginning of my quest, and although admiring my efforts, they really implored me to stop, particularly in light of the college findings. In a post 2 years ago, I pointed out what my classmate, Dr. Margaret Chan, had said to me at our 40th reunion. Now, Margaret was the medical director of the World Health Organization from 2006 to 2017, and of course had met with some of the world's most feared despot leaders. So what was Margaret's advice to me? And I quote, "David, you need to stop what you're doing right now. You need to protect your family, and you need to protect yourself." So just what is it that my colleagues and I need to protect ourselves and our families from? Ontario's physicians fear the college, not because they've done something wrong, but because they've done something right. And you heard me correctly, because we've done something right. The college publicly claims that a physician's first and foremost duty is to be an advocate for their patients. But as you can see from what's happening to me, it demonstrates in spades that this is an absolutely monstrous lie. One of the most vivid memories of the medical class of 77 was in the final week of classes, a senior physician came to speak to us, and he made it very, very clear. You need to fear the college. So one of my first priorities will be to provide you, the public, with all the documentation and information you need to decide whether or not you also need to fear the college. So, yes, in November, I will be reamed out by the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario, and then I will be publicly shamed on their website with letters sent to medical facilities across Ontario to warn them about the bad Dr. Webster. My crime? Well, I tried to advocate for my patient, but was unable to stop Cancer Care Ontario, with the backing of the college, from forcing my colleagues and me to use standards based on the 1990s levels of medical care for her. Now, the end result for Carol was an unimaginable nightmare of pain, suffering, unbearable depression, and premature death. In fact, I'm looking forward to going before this public body, there to protect you, the citizens of Ontario, from doctors like me. Now, one thing I'm going to do is demand that the physician who made the unthinkable suggestion during a telephone conference as to how I could make this complaint disappear now look me straight in the eye and repeat what he said. He not only wanted me to stop writing the government's experts, who are public servants, remember, and therefore open, transparent, and accountable, but he suggested that I apologize to one physician in particular for the upset that I had caused him. And my response was this: "You're kidding, right? You want me to apologize to the physician who is responsible for the experiment on over 300 unsuspecting patients, terrified with their new diagnosis of breast cancer that would lead to pet trials being declared unethical and bordering on immoral. The very public servant who is the reason why Ontario is the only medical jurisdiction in the world that will not allow women with more advanced breast cancer to have what may be a critical PET scan. Not a chance. So go ahead and give me your best shot. And that's what I said. Surely, this single, deplorable, and unconscionable request demonstrates why Ontario physicians truly need to fear the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario. And perhaps you do as well. One thing for sure is that I now have a very powerful second motivator to stand up to the politicians from, in fact, all three political parties, Cancer Care Ontario, and their enablers like the college. So besides continuing to do my utmost to protect patients from them, I'm going to now place myself squarely between the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario and Ontario's medical students. My hope, yet again against all odds, is that Ontario's future doctors will not have to practice in a climate of fear and bullying by the college, and for once enter practice knowing they will be able to fulfill their sacred Hippocratic oath, which is to first do no harm to their patients. Now, at the end of each video post I'm going to subsequently make, I'm going to create a list of who these were copied to. Mostly this will be to those who have ensured, for example, Carol's fate and the college's success at bullying physicians. And of course, that will be our most trusted sources of news and information. Now, you can decide for yourselves whether it's more likely that the sun will rise in the west tomorrow, or that somehow, after 15 years of creating alternative truths for the Ontario government, our most trusted sources of news and information will suddenly be interested in the ongoing experiments on patients that were declared unethical and bordering on immoral way back in 2005. I think once you really grasp the tactics and the power of the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario and all the other government and our politicians' enablers, you will finally be forced to face the reality of just how far down that slippery slope we have traveled on our way to potentially becoming yet another state-controlled tyranny where truths will be defined by our politicians and any dissent will not be tolerated. Thanks for listening.